is Ryan Patterson, and we're here on another episode of the For the Fans podcast. Today, I think the major thing that we are going to be discussing as a whole will be the upcoming NFL playoffs and what teams we believe coming into this final week of the season will or will not get in. Of course, we're in the case right now where a whole bunch of teams have clinched, but there are still 3 spots open, so things are completely up to anybody's guess right now. But as that, we're going to welcome on Ryan Patterson as we are going to start off this discussion. So I guess I'll just start it off right now. We have 3 out of the 4 division leaders of the AFC in touch. So let's start it off with that. Technically, any of these teams can pretty much make the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Who do you expect to make that 1 seed?
I definitely have the Titans as my clear-cut number 1 seed. Just because, the matchup they have, if they win, they're the they're the 1 seed. So, as long as they win, they beat, a struggling Texans team, I think that they're going to have that 1 seed. Do you think the same?
I do agree. I will say Davis Mills, the quarterback for the Texans, has actually played very, very well this year. Kind of under a lot of people's radar. He's becoming very underrated. But the Titans, possibly getting Derrick Henry back maybe,
Right.
should have an easy day. And even though Kansas City looks great, I expect the Titans to go into that 1 seed bye. So the next 2 division winners, you have Kansas City, who of course took that loss to Cincinnati last week. But I'm not nervous about them at all. They played Denver, who's just straight up struggling right now.
Yeah, they look like one of the worst teams in football right now.
I would 100% agree. Denver's just,
Especially offensively.
It's all the offense. It's all the offense.
Yeah, the defense has been one of the best in the league, but if you can't put points on the board, there's only so much your defense can do.
I agree. I feel like somebody's going to get fired in Denver next year.
Absolutely.
But that's not Kansas City's problem, of course. So I expect them to go in there and take that 2 seed. With that in mind, I think Cincinnati, in their right, would have Cleveland next week. A Cleveland team that got pretty much embarrassed by Pittsburgh last week.
Right.
A team that we will talk about a little bit later, but that Cleveland team did not have the best day against Pittsburgh. There's questionable play calling. They weren't running Nick Chubb as much as they should have.
Yeah.
I expect Cincinnati to come in there and take that 3 seed.
Yeah, and I even think with the recent reports of Jamar Chase not even playing and having T. Higgins with a limited role, I think they could still beat this Browns team. I think the Browns team with Baker Mayfield, he was just looking very hesitant in the last game. In a lot of his reads, he had wide open tight ends on a drag route down the field, and then he would try to force it down the field to Peoples-Jones or Jarvis Landry, and that resulted in, I think, 2 interceptions in that game.
I think he's just not very good, if I am to be frank. This isn't even me saying this from like a Steelers bias point of view.
Last year he was pretty solid, but I think he just, with the injuries and just overall decision making, he's going down a tough road.
So now let's discuss this first kind of important division race here that's really going on, and that is the AFC East. Your Jets AFC East, of course.
Yeah.
So you have the 2 games of that week, which is you have Buffalo playing the Jets in Buffalo, and then you have Miami playing New England in Miami. So Miami and New York are out. So let's see what kind of goes on with them.
Right.
I think New York is something to play for in the fact that they played hard against the Buccaneers last week. That should be at least interesting. I don't know about Miami and how they'll kind of treat this because this is their first week being out. But to make this the point, it's pretty simple. If the Bills win, if they beat the Jets, they're in. And I think the Jets have been playing well in recent weeks, but I'm just going to go ahead and give this to Buffalo.
Yeah, no, I agree. As much as I love our Jets team and how they've been playing lately, it's just asking too much to go into Buffalo and get a win. I do expect them to cover, although, but I just think, that 14-point spread, I think they might cover that. But I think it's just, you're asking more for New England to go into Miami, because I feel like Miami is still going to give their all. Because of the rivalry that they have.
That is true.
I think that's really what it goes into there. I think it's just that, with Miami being such, they wanted such a great run. So did the Patriots look like the hottest team in football, but they've kind of, I mean, you expect them to beat the Jags, but before that they kind of fell off a little bit. But I think that the Bills are gonna take the division.
With that in mind, so assuming that we both agree that the Bills are going to take the division, next you have this wild card race where it's pretty simple. I mean, for starters, New England would be in the wild card race. They'd be in as the 5.
Yeah.
Assuming that they beat Miami. I think Miami goes all out, but I think New England's a better team. That should be an interesting matchup to Tagovailoa against Mac Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I think Buffalo at its best might be the better team, but they've just been inconsistent.
I would agree.
Like, for example, losing to Jacksonville, just those little fluke games that they have, just doesn't give me as much confidence, because as you know, like the Patriots, they always take care of business with the crap teams. They just beat up on them, and as they showed last week when they beat the Jaguars 50-10.
So with that in mind, I think we can go ahead and say New England will stick in there and get that 5.
Yeah.
So okay. So then now talking about the next couple of games, so this is where things get interesting. There are a couple of teams that are left, but the first one is pretty simple. Indianapolis beats Jacksonville. If they beat Jacksonville, they are in, and that is that.
Right.
So, also, with that also being in mind, you also have to discuss the one other game, which is that Raiders game, which is essentially the Raiders play the Chargers. Pretty much, the winner of that game is in, and the loser of that game is out.
Right.
So that's going to be a big game. And then you look at the two teams that are on the outside, which are the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, and both of them have to sit out there and just look at Jacksonville and say, I know you guys don't have much to play for, but in that case, Pittsburgh just needs Jacksonville to defeat the Colts next week, and Baltimore needs Jacksonville to beat the Colts. They need to beat the Steelers. Also, the Steelers need to beat the Ravens.
Right.
So, and then I think the Chargers would have to lose, I believe it is, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
So then in that case, then the Ravens would get in. The Ravens is very much, in my opinion, a stretch. But let's see how we look at that.
Yeah, I mean, in the event of Jacksonville winning, and that would mean the Colts are out, right?
That would
that would be pretty crazy. Like, just seeing, that the run that Indianapolis went on for them to just be knocked out of the playoffs by a team that's been one of the worst we've seen in NFL history.
For optimism for Steelers and Ravens fans, the Colts have not won in Jacksonville since 2014. A fact that as a Steelers fan, I am still holding on to.
Right.
On an emotional level. But, so with that being the fact, I do think the Colts get that win, even though it will pain me when I see it happen on Sunday at 1 o'clock. It will pain me. I think the Colts get that win.
Yeah.
So then, would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So in that case, then we're talking about our Colts as our 6th seed. I think they've been very, very good this year. And I just feel like with the running game, Carson Wentz improving, it would take a big effort by Jacksonville. Almost the effort that it took them to beat Buffalo in order to take down Indianapolis.
Yeah, I just think your biggest matchup here is Vegas versus LA. I think that's really a matchup to watch this weekend.
That's going to be a big game. The one thing with Vegas versus LA that's very, very interesting is if Jacksonville wins, Vegas and LA, because that game is at 8:30, could go onto the field and just take knees the entire game, and they both be in.
Yeah, because they're gonna know the result
of everything else.
Yeah, so they could just knee every time, and they both get in.
Yeah, which is so dumb. The NFL needs to change that time. I don't think, have we called out the NFL yet on this?
Yeah, I mean, you might want to consider having that game at the same time.
Yeah.
to prevent that from happening.
Because as a Steelers fan, if Derek Carr and Justin Herbert go out there after Jacksonville wins, and then if we beat Baltimore, and if they go out there and kneel the ball and both get into the playoffs because they tie, Justin Herbert would just skyrocket up the list of my most hated NFL.
Yeah, it would result in two quarterbacks having negative 50 yards rushing.
And it would just be, oh my God, I feel like if a Steelers fan saw that, if the Ravens got into that situation, we would just be livid. I
would probably be laughing, but that's just me.
I'd be standing with any Ravens fan who would have to suffer through that pain, even if you beat us today. Then like Pittsburgh and Baltimore can come together and we can hate Justin Herbert and Derek Carr for the rest of eternity. I'm fine with that. But regardless, let's actually now talk about the logistics of this game.
Right.
Assuming that they do not just decide to take kneels the entire time, which I think they have more of enough of a rivalry with each other to the extent that they won't do that.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to want the other team in the Vegas is not going to want to see LA in the playoffs, and LA is not going to want to see Vegas in the playoffs. So
they might as well get each other out.
Yeah, they might as well try to get each other out.
So with that in mind, Vegas or LA?
I mean, like, my heart wants to say Vegas, and also because, you know, they're home. So I want to say Vegas, but I just, you know, the stability of Derek Carr recently hasn't been amazing. Like, he had a much better start to the year than he's been finishing. But I think I'm gonna choose Vegas, and if I come back to this video and I see that LA won, I might be a little upset, but
I mean, it's a role of being on this thing. You have to be willing to take takes that are wrong.
yeah, I know.
I mean, at least you're not some YouTubers who I know who have said in the past. I know someone say like Luka Doncic is going to be a bust, so I mean, you were wrong about that if you know who I'm talking about. Shout out Rusty Buckets, one of my favorite YouTubers.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a part of this. Everybody makes bad takes.
No, this is a 50-50 game that I expect to probably end on a game-winning field goal. That's really my take here, is that it's going to come down to the final points, in my opinion.
I think it's going to come down to one person, Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert at times shows his elite game-breaking ability. It's just like, holy hell, this dude is good.
Yeah,
like you'll watch him weeks.
Yeah.
You'll watch some weeks and you're like, is this dude better than Patrick Mahomes? Maybe. I don't know. But then you watch other weeks, like when he played against the Texans, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Is this dude even like a starter? What's going on here?
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I think it'll come down to what type of game does Justin Herbert put in. With that being said,
I think it depends on both quarterbacks. I think it depends what Derek Carr we get, and it also depends on what Justin Herbert we get. I think that's what it overall depends on.
Yeah, and then the other little thing, special teams.
Right.
With some Chargers miss a couple field goals, Vegas misses a couple field goals. That could be the answer. I mean,
even penalties too.
Here's the one thing that also, with the tumultuous season that Vegas had, with all the problems that they've had this season, with John Gruden and the Henry Ruggs situation,
and even other players just getting in legal troubles.
And just like some other things. I mean, they had the ex-coach who died last week.
Right.
Like, they have continued to persevere.
Yeah, with all those hardships, if they can get into the playoffs, after John Gruden was, after he was gone, everybody was telling me everything I was reading. They were saying the Raiders are done, and Brody is guilty of saying that, but I think we all were. I think that we all thought that the Raiders were done.
I think that it's gonna. I think the storyline and the narrative fits it towards being the Las Vegas Raiders who win the game.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like the narrative of everyone calling them done, myself included. But I was like, okay, the Raiders beat the Steelers earlier in the year, of course, and I was like, and then all the John Gruden stuff, and the Henry Ruggs stuff, and the John Madden stuff.
Yeah, I think.
And everyone was like, this team has been through so much this year that, like, they have to bow out at some point. Yet they haven't done that. So I think that, like, there's a level of just fire under that team, and I expect it to show this weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to go out there, and I'm going to agree with you and say Raiders.
Yeah, I expect the coach for the Raiders to come out there and say, like, let's do this for John Madden. Let's do this for all the hardships we've been through. And I think that motivation is gonna propel them to the top. I think even not saying that the Chargers don't have anything to play for. I'm sure they had their own hardships, in injuries and other stuff like that. That they want to make the playoffs probably just as much. But I feel like, yeah, that would fit such a perfect story.
Such a perfect narrative.
Yeah, such a perfect narrative that the Raiders make the playoffs.
And then go knock off Kansas City. And then also with Pittsburgh and Baltimore, I'd say if that's the case, that finishes the narratives about their seasons.
Right.
Which is that Pittsburgh's whole season is like they're playing above, but their offensive line is horrible, and they need to replace Big Ben. So I feel like needing to replace Big Ben, I feel like the real story, that would kind of end the storyline, and then you're going into the whole new thing with them.
Yeah,
and Baltimore, it's like the defense isn't very good, and the narrative is kind of like this just isn't their year.
Right.
Versus the Raiders, it's like they're overcoming things.
Right.
So I don't know how to really say this.
Yeah, I mean, for the Steelers, that'd be a miraculous story with Big Ben's last year and everything like that. But I feel like a lot of times this year they didn't show that it was their year, so maybe they don't deserve it as much as maybe some of the other teams do. Not saying, that the Steelers aren't a good football team, but they did lose to both the Chargers and the Raiders. So,
and the tie to Detroit.
Yeah, it makes it seem not as deserving.
And it'd be like
not like counting out what they've done this year.
What they have done. I mean, they beat Tennessee, they beat Buffalo.
Yeah.
They beat Baltimore. They've had some nice wins this year. But at the end of the day, I just don't think that it's really the Steelers, the Ravens' place. And if it is the Steelers' place, then I'm completely wrong about this. I'll be happier than anyone else to the extent that, I'm doubting the Steelers here. So hopefully this is, hopefully it's reverse psychology or something. But
right.
So let's discuss kind of just the ending to what we believe here. So we have Tennessee.
Right.
We have Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. Then we have New England.
Yeah.
Then we have Indianapolis. And then we have, to round this all out, we have the Raiders. Vegas.
Right.
So, those are our AFC predictions. I mean, anything can happen because it's the NFL. But that's what I legitimately would like to think.
Yeah.
And then on the outside looking in, you have the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Ravens.
Yeah, and you could also leave your predictions in the comments too. We'd be willing to look at those and discuss, what you think. But this is our overall thoughts. We think that the Chargers can go in and win as well, but right now we think that maybe the Raiders sneak out a win here. But, that game is really 50-50.
That game is definitely 50-50. And then if you're going back to Steelers-Ravens, it's the NFL. Anything's possible. Jacksonville's beaten Buffalo this year.
Right.
They beat someone else who I remember who was pretty good as well.
Yeah.
So anything's really possible. So could Jacksonville upset Indianapolis? Yes.
Yeah.
But we don't expect those.
I mean, they've been
either-
upsetting them for the last
7 years.
So,
except for when they had Ramsey, of course.
right, yeah, when they were a playoff team, but yeah,
You know,
those days are long over.
long gone. So then let's move on to the NFC. So the 1 seed's the Packers. This is like I think it's like locked in stone at this point.
Yeah,
The NFC
they-
runs to Green Bay.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
pretty simple. So then you're gonna discuss the 2, 3, and the 4. So the ones that are locked into stone is that Dallas has the division,
Yeah.
which is a big one. And then you have the other one would be.
LA.
Can you fill me in? No, it would not be LA. Because LA and the Chargers.
Oh, Tampa Bay.
Oh yes, it would be Tampa Bay. Excuse me, I forgot about
Yeah.
the Super Bowl champions. But for some weird reason. But
yeah, Tampa Bay should be winning this week as
Tampa
well.
Bay
so they're
is
gonna have
another
the
one.
division. I think they.
Tampa Bay has won the
Yeah,
division.
they already have it outright.
So that is interesting. Tampa Bay has that division outright. Green Bay is their division outright. And Dallas is the NFC East outright. So then when you go into the NFC West, that's where things get interesting. So you have, if the Rams win, they're in. I mean, that's pretty simple. If the Rams win this game, they're in. And they play San Francisco, who's fighting for their playoff lives. If San Francisco wins, they make the playoffs.
Right.
So that's a big game right there. Because if San Francisco loses, they open up the door for the 7 seed, and for what would actually currently be the 8th seed, or the New Orleans Saints, to jump in and make the playoffs. So I'll just go out on a limb and say my opinion is and then the other thing about that, wait a second, would be that you would have Arizona.
Right.
And Arizona plays Seattle. So Arizona, in order to win the division, needs to beat Seattle, and they need LA to lose to San Francisco.
Right.
Seattle, a team this year that hasn't been very good. It's the end of Russell Wilson maybe in Seattle. So I'm just going to give you my personal opinion, which is, so I think that the Rams will be able to take care of the 49ers, or I think Seattle could be a potential upset because they want to go out with one final hurrah in what might be the end of the Russell Wilson era.
Right.
So I'm going to say that the Rams win that division. So would you like to give your thoughts on that?
We kind of had an argument before air about this current situation, but I actually think that the 49ers will take care of business and beat LA, just because they have a ton to play for too. The Rams, if they lose, they're still in the playoffs. If they win, yeah, they take the division, and then depending on the Cardinals' result, can't they still win the division?
Yes.
So even if the Cardinals were to lose to Seattle, they would still win the division, the Rams. But I think Arizona is going to win the division. I think they're going to beat the shorthanded Seattle team. Their defense has been in shambles all year. Starting from the beginning of the year, where they would get torched by any team that they played with, even with Jamal Adams healthy, Bobby Wagner healthy, all those guys, they were still horrendous. The offense hasn't been that great. Russell Wilson, he might, as Brody said, he might be done. I think, Arizona is going to go in. They're going to win. This game is at Arizona. I really don't expect a team that's like Seattle, that's falling off a cliff, to come in there and pick up a road win.
So you think San Francisco will take care of business against?
I think they will.
Is this because of your faith in Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, I believe that the last few weeks Stafford has not been himself. Throwing in some instances 3 interceptions in the first quarter. I believe that was 2 weeks ago.
That was against Baltimore last week.
I believe like a few weeks ago he did as well. I'm pretty sure he's had more than 2 interceptions in the last 3 games. But I think it's going to depend on his performance. If we see the Matthew Stafford that we saw the first, 14 weeks of the year, yeah, like they're going to win easily. I feel like. But if he plays terrible, they can they gave a backup quarterback, Huntley, like they gave him a chance to win the game. I think Trey Lance, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo was playing, right?
Yes, I think it would be Lance.
Yeah, I think Lance is better than Huntley. I think Lance would take better advantage of Matthew Stafford's bad play, and also there's more playmakers on this San Francisco team than on Baltimore. So I think that they could go in there and win. I don't think that would be something too crazy to say.
I also feel like though with guys like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and Von Miller on that defense, on that LA defense, like guys who have been playing for a while and really know what they're doing, and guys who have been to the top. I mean, Von Miller won a Super Bowl, and Jalen Ramsey has been consistently the best cornerback in the league, and Aaron Donald's been a decoy for 3 years. I think 3 times?
Yeah.
3 times?
I think
so. At that point, I feel like those high-level guys might be able to take advantage of Lance as he's playing in his second start. So I think that they will take advantage of that.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, yeah, it also is, on the LA defense. I think, they do have a pretty elite defense for the most part. A lot of stars on that defense. But I think if they can't put up points on the board, 49ers offense only has to do so well to sneak out, win by 3 points. Because I feel like Baltimore could have, they could have definitely won that game.
Yeah. That game was a lot of self-inflicted wounds on the case of Matthew Stafford, where it was bad interceptions, bad, snaps, that was not Matthew Stafford's best game, but I do expect LA, because of their defense and because of how they play, I just expect them to find a way to sneak this game out, take the division, and then with that in mind, so regardless of if it's LA or Arizona, if I believe that it's LA, if you believe that it's Arizona, then in your case, then you would have San Francisco.
Yeah, and then that would cap out all the division spots. And at the 5, we would have LA, right? We'd have the Rams.
Well, if you believe that it would be Arizona, then you would have Arizona at the 5. It would.
Right.
I mean, no. I mean, you would have Arizona at the 4. We would have LA at the 5.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Then that would have San Francisco at the 6.
Mm-hmm.
That was on me, but.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because you would have San Francisco then winning that game, which cements them in. And I'm going to tell you the exact same thing, which is I personally would say that you're going to get in. You're going to have LA at the 4, Arizona at the 5, and then, of course, Philadelphia would actually be the 6, and then San Fran would be the 7. Assuming on what happens in the Philadelphia game when they play Dallas. But that could really go either which way. So I think that you get Philadelphia in there. And then I'm going to say it, I still have San Francisco in there. But I have
Despite the loss.
Despite the loss. And my take is, I think Atlanta comes in there in what might be the end of the Matthew Stafford era. I mean, not the Matt Ryan era, not the Matthew Stafford era. The Matt Stafford, oh my God. The Matt Ryan era, too many quarterbacks named Matt. But you go in there at the end in the Matt Ryan era, and you, as a result of that, I think you'll be pumped up, division game, and Matt Ryan is the better quarterback than Taysom Hill.
Yeah,
no matter what people really want to say about that. I think that he just is. And I think, like, with them going in with, like, that being their final game against the fans, I think Atlanta backs up what they have to say. They've been 7-2 in close games this year, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Knocking away the classic Atlanta jokes away close games narrative. But
no, but I mean,
I think Atlanta doesn't have much to play for, and so I think Atlanta ends up being the team to kick New Orleans out.
No, and let me add that this game isn't in Atlanta too, as well. So, that also gives them, the home field advantage. It's a big rivalry, and I expect this game to be close. The Saints have gone through a lot of injuries, a lot of problems. That that's might come to hurt them during this game. But with the players that they have, if they can, somehow sneak out a win, that would be really impressive.
That would be really, really impressive. And then in my case, you would have, I think that would then, if New Orleans kicks out the win, then in my case, with LA winning, you'd have New Orleans in, and then you'd have San Fran out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess so essentially, my 7 are the Packers, the Rams, the Tampa Bay, the Cowboys as my first 4, and then you would have the Eagles, you would have the San Francisco 49ers.
Don't forget the Cardinals.
And you would have the Cardinals.
Right.
Yes, of course. Not in direct order, but those are my top 4 and then 3. So then, I think you would technically have the exact same.
Well, other than it would substitute the Cardinals into that division spot, and then I would have the Rams in that 5 spot.
And then we get Cardinals Rams.
Exactly.
I mean, we can start to discuss that either which way. But, that I think would be, the final message, I think that would be the game of the week.
Right.
I mean, those 2 high-powered offenses.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
So, I think our NFC game of the week would be, that game, the Rams versus the Cardinals, and then our AFC game of the week, I think, would be the Chargers versus the Raiders, just because of how much is on the line.
No, Rams versus Cardinals would be a first round.
Well, yeah, I know that.
But. For this week, I mean, the game for this week to watch is definitely the Chargers versus Raiders game. Hopefully, if everything goes according to this plan, I think the game to watch next week would be that 4-5. I mean, not next week. In the first round of the playoffs would hopefully be the 4-5 Rams-Cardinals matchup. As you can tell, we both have different views on those 2. So that kind of states about how equivalent of teams they are and how much that would be a battle. So then the other question is, assuming that we're kind of getting what we're getting in the AFC, I personally think that the game of the week in the AFC might just be Bills-Patriots in that 4-5.
Yeah, that would be that game of the week in that playoffs, I would think, yeah.
I mean, you would have at the 7, you would have Raiders-Chiefs, and that also sounds really, really good. But this is also playoffs, Kansas City.
Yeah, so
they might just put 100 on their heads and then call it a deal.
Yeah, I think it would probably be Bills, Patriots. I mean, the last matchup with the, Mac Jones, only 3 pass attempts. Those games are always close.
And that's a rivalry.
That's also a rivalry too. I mean, that'll be their 3rd time playing at that point. So, I think we're gonna get a good game out of that one for sure.
That's assuming that everything goes as planned. But who knows? Steelers 7 seed against Kansas City. Bring it on. That's all that I gotta say.
Yeah,
Bring it on. Bring it on. Let's go Steeler Nation. Let's hope that we can get it. But with that, so we have our 1s through 7s, which we will just repeat as Tennessee for the AFC, of course, we have Tennessee. You would have Tennessee, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo, New England, Indianapolis, and Las Vegas. And then for the NFC,
we would have, as our outright, we would have Green Bay. We have Tampa Bay, who's in there. I have the Cardinals. He doesn't. Who was that other fourth?
You would have the Cowboys.
Oh yeah, we'd have the Cowboys in, and then the 5 would be the Eagles.
Yes.
And then we would have. What else would we have then?
We would have the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, the 49ers.
And then you would have the other team that is not the Rams or the Cardinals.
Oh yeah.
So with that, this is the conclusion of our playoffs conversation. If your team's out there, we hope that they get in. I'm certainly hoping that my team gets in.
Yeah,
my team's
been out since week 10. But
so he's gonna root for my team, right?
I don't know.
Yes,
We'll see.
yes, you are. So with that in mood, we just like to bring up once again that we like the fact that we're able to do this on a daily week, and we try to always push out content. So with that, we would like it if you would pull up, like our video, and subscribe to our channel, because that means a lot, especially with us just starting out. Right. It's something that we've been dreaming to do, where it's like talk about this stuff for as long as we do. Mm-hmm. And we just enjoy the heck out of doing it. With that being said, if you ever want to come on to this, you just have to go on our Instagram, which is For the Fans Podcast _. And we have a form in our highlights that you have to fill out. It is 3 simple questions. You can go on to there and you can fill it out. And after that, we will get back to you as soon as possible. If you want to talk about your favorite team, another favorite team, just pretty much anything you want to talk about with us on here, you're welcome to do that. And so with that,